My guest is Polly Crichton. She is a former BCer who escaped to the south of France, where she runs an alfresco hotel called Imagine France. And I call it alfresco. So the season is?
The season is the beginning of April to the end of October for 2014, the first week of November.
Tell me how you spend Christmas.
Well, my husband still travels back and forth to Holland for work, so we're generally just tucked in at Christmas by ourselves. We don't necessarily go away, although this year we are thinking we'll head to Scotland for Christmas.
I see.
Yeah, but generally just by the fire. It's a real downtime. It's a real time to, be for yourself, busy, and do your own home instead of looking after everyone else.
And if you're not, oh, I see Hans, what is he doing?
Oh yeah, he's splitting wood. We sit on 4.5 hectares is our land, and so we cut down our own trees for our fire because our home has no heat because you're in the south of France.
Of course.
But in the winter, you still need a fire.
Yes, you do.
So
and you need a wood whomper, as we used to call my father, somebody to cut the wood.
Yeah, exactly. And our neighbor does the big trees, but then we get the small pieces, and then Hans does all the splitting. Yeah. And
what are his other chores?
Well,
dare I ask?
I have to say, with the fact that we're doing sort of a Dutch thing, it's called living apart together, because he does spend 10 days a month in Holland at work, but he's an Apple computer technician. But at home, he's very, very helpful. But his biggest help, I have to say, is with the table d'hôte, when the guests are in the courtyard in the evening, then he's good for filling the wine and sitting down beside somebody and having a glass of wine and carrying on conversation. And so socially, he's a super help.
So Hans turns into the maitre d' at times when he's fixing computers or designing a program or doing something.
Yeah, then he's pouring the wine and making sure you have a whiskey at the end of the meal.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
It's the French way because, as you know, well, I'm not French, so I don't know for sure, but it seems they work to live.
Absolutely, that's the only reason for it, and it is an interesting concept. It's difficult to get used to, but like the 2-hour lunch and the fact that you might like to go to the bank at 1 o'clock, well, the bank it's closed, and as I say, sometimes somebody will be doing some work for you in the morning. They'll go for lunch. They won't come back. It is very a work to live attitude. They do it for as much as they need. And their needs don't grow and grow and grow. If they have a roof over their head and they have a nice home and a garden and they don't need a swimming pool, then they don't need to work as hard.
Well, and the French women I know would rather buy lingerie than new drapes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very, very true. Things to me, buy fancy shoes and all of that. And
it doesn't matter what age that French woman is. Lingerie is very, very important. At the gym, it's quite interesting. It is amazing.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
well,
amazing.
There's no spanky pants with the names of the week on them. Embroidered little cotton pants.
No, they're all usually lacy and very bright colors.
And very nice and all of that. Well, I had the privilege, the pleasure of spending some time with Mireille Giuliano in Gallier in France.
Yes.
And she wrote French Women Don't Get Fat. Now she's written French Women Don't Get Facelifts.
Facelifts, oh well.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm not sure about that either, but I do have to say French women don't get fat. And when you look around the restaurants at lunch and stuff, you always see there's wine on the table, but it's accompanied by water. And I think that's one of the biggest secrets.
Okay.
And for coming from Canada and Holland, where we buy a bottle of wine, I would never leave half the bottle on the table, but the French do. I would just order a glass if you're only going to have a glass. So it's interesting how they balance it out.
Sure, and they don't eat huge portions. That was my experience in France.
And
they eat everything.
Everything.
The brie and the foie gras and the escargot and all of that, but they don't eat giant portions of
anything. And yet, if it is a warm meal, it's usually served at lunchtime. Then they've got the whole day to digest the meal, and evening is a salad or some cheese and, a little bit of bread.
So if you're a bit restless and you're not a downtimer and you don't want to hang around at Imagine France, day trips, example, Exxon, how far are you from
is 100. 100 kilometers we're from Aix, but really worth the trip, needless to say, beautiful city.
City of Fountains.
Yes, City of Fountains, fabulous. And the Cour Mirabeau is just, it's a beautiful place to be and people watch for sure. Avignon is 35 kilometers from us. That's the city of popes, where all the popes over hundreds of years have spent their vacations. So beautiful, beautiful castles. The Rhone River runs right along Avignon, and closer to us, 22 kilometers away, a beautiful village called Uzès, and they have a fabulously well-known market on Saturdays where everybody goes. But it's sort of shoulder to shoulder, very, very busy. And university towns, Montpellier is very close, also sort of mini Parises. So lots to do. The Pont du Gard, I think there's a photo. Pont du Gard is an aqueduct from early BC.
Right.
And just breathtaking spots to see.
And how's your French, language-wise?
Well, being Canadian from my 50-plus years,
Yeah.
we learned it, in grade 7 and 8, and then we got the choice to carry on or not, so I chose not to. But I have to say, I'm coming back to it quite quickly. I'm at the point I sort of say it's like somebody's given me a hearing aid now. I understand what people are saying. My grammar is not particularly good, but I've been a bit confused along the way because I'm also fluent in Dutch.
Oh,
So,
I see.
yeah, so the translation that goes in one ear and comes out the other is sometimes...
But you can give the plumber directions when
Absolutely, when he shows up.
What's his name again? No-show?
Well, we call him comically No-Show Chaudet, but his name is Mr. Chaudet.
No-show Chaudet.
Yes, and I think I'm safe to say that in British Columbia.
I had a contractor once, I think his company was Do It Right, and we called it Do It Wrong.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Similar idea.
Don't call him. He'll do it wrong for sure. So the people, the place, what have you learned about how we are different, in a sense, or are we that different?
Yeah, I don't think you really are that different. I think that... yeah, mostly I think what I've learned is adaptation for everybody is different. My husband and I, we seem to be easy movers. I think I was an easy mover at my time when I left Vancouver to go to Holland. And from Holland to France was also an easy move, but I don't think we're all that much different. We speak different languages, we, get used to different temperatures and that kind of thing. But in general, I would say that, we're pretty much the same.
An average temperature in season for you in France?
Well, in July and August, we can get at our location we can get up to 38, 40 degrees. So then you don't really go much further than the pool. But normal through the summer is anywhere from 30 to 35.
And animals on the property, I'm assuming, a wild boar?
Wild boar, sangliers.
Perhaps?
Yes, absolutely,
Really?
yes. And well, if you were sitting by my kitchen door, a sanglier could be sitting right where I'm sitting.
Great.
They come very, very close. And we have population control at this moment in time is, of definite importance.
And are hunters allowed on the property?
You have your choice.
Wild boar hunting? Can you go wild boar hunting so you can have dinner?
Well, we have a deal with them. We allow them to shoot on our property, which they do with pleasure. And the deal is that then at the end of the season, we should certainly get a leg or two to have in our freezer. That's the sort of the nice way to do it. It's not a good idea to say they can't come on the property. Let's leave it at that idea. Yeah.
Well, I had an early stint in the hotel business, so I know what it's like to run a resort.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot about people.
Yeah, you certainly do. Yeah, and I've been the lucky one, I think, because I've had so many great guests come. And this year, being our 5th year with the tents, I've got families coming back for the 5th year in a row. And so I take that as a huge compliment.
Great.
Yeah.
Do people take things?
Not yet. I did have one fellow who unfortunately did take the hairdryer and the robe because he had an unfortunate argument with his girlfriend, and she said, "You go back to the tent and get our things and I'll meet you at the train station." So he came to the tent and took my hairdryer and the robes, but small situations like that.
But not blankets and bedding because, French towels.
Exactly. No, it's very
You don't have
true.
that kind of clientele.
No, thank goodness not.
No, well, I know
thank
my
goodness not.
ex-father-in-law said, whatever you do, if you're going to put an ashtray, and the French smoke
Yes,
still.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
A lot.
And they can, yes.
And they can.
Yes, they can smoke.
If you put an ashtray somewhere, put the name of the hotel on the bottom of it because it's for sure they'll take that.
Exactly. Wonderful advertising. Yeah.
But what about that? Just the joie de vivre and the smoking and the... What do you learn about being impossibly French or living...
I would say...
Living French.
Yeah, that is one of the big differences when it comes to the rules and regulations. I mean, it is very, it can be very rigid and it can also be very low key. But rules like smoking, for instance, they're just not going to stop smoking. That's the bottom line. And so as much as the restaurateurs try, no, they're just going to go forward.
And driving?
Driving, yes, not the best drivers in the world. Middle of the road is usually their favorite. They flash at you if you have your lights on, and they tend to fall in love with your bumper very quickly.
Okay, will you come back to British Columbia to live ever?
I would if I didn't have my husband. British Columbia is very dear to my heart.
Well, I hope he stays around.
I hope so too.
Okay, well, nice to meet you.
Well, it was lovely to be on the show. Thanks, Fanny.
Polly Crichton, Imagine France. And thanks for being here with me today. There will be many more entertaining and intriguing guests to come to join me here on Shaw TV.